Good afternoon and welcome back to All for United. This is the Pride of All Europe podcast and it's semi-final day number 2, England versus Denmark. But before we get into all that, how are we, Charlie?
All good, mate. Are you doing all right?
Yeah, not bad, mate, not bad. How are we, Neil, mate?
Very good. Happy guys.
Absolutely. And how are we, Stuart? Stu.
Excellent. Yeah, Stu's better, please. Yeah, Stu.
The thing is, though, mate, I work with 3 Stuarts at work, but one of them likes Stu like yourself. The other 2 are Stuarts. So yeah. I've got it all in my brain, and even I start calling the wrong ones. The ones that like to be called Stuart, I call them Stu. So it's madness, mate, madness.
I answer to most things, so don't worry.
Yeah, lovely. Anyway, it is the Euro 2020 semi-final part 2 or game day 2, whatever you want to call it. England, Denmark. Charlie, how are we feeling for it, mate?
Excited and nervous at the same time, really, Billy. I think if there was one team that England could come up against that they would be fearing in this Euros simply because of what's happened through the whole tournament, it might be Denmark. Before the tournament, and obviously after the Eriksen incident as well, I think a lot of people wrote Denmark off, really. I think they were written off. By me especially as well. I just didn't think they had the quality, but they've all stepped up, not just mentally, but also in terms of the way they've won games, the amount of goals they've scored, the ability of some of their players that I didn't know they actually had before the tournament. If you look at, we all knew about Kasper Schmeichel, we knew about the strong centre halves they've got, but also players like Damsgaard and Myler, the left wing back as well, that I knew nothing about before the tournament. And these are good footballers. They're really good technical footballers. And Denmark were a team that I thought were a little bit rigid and a little bit lacking creativity. And when their most creative player, the terrible incident happened, I saw no way back for them. And they played Belgium and were unlucky to lose. They got out of the group. They smashed Russia. They smashed Wales. And they beat the Czech Republic. No one's doubting that those teams are not exactly fantastic teams, and this will be their toughest test tonight. But they're scoring goals, and they're not conceding too many as well. So I think it's going to be a tough game for England tonight. And if there was a team that can upset England at Wembley, it would be Denmark. But I just think England will have too much for them. I just think England have a little bit too much quality. I think that the crowd today at Wembley will play a huge part again. And I just think England have so many different options. I expect England to go to a 3-4-3 again. I think they'll match up like they did against Germany. I don't think Gareth Southgate likes playing against other wing backs when he's got a back 4. I don't think he'll want to play against a back 5 with a back 4. So I think he'll set up with a 3-4-3. I think Saka will come back in. I think that's the only questionable sort of decision Gareth's going to make. Does he start Saka? Does he start Grealish and move Sterling to the right wing? I don't think so. I think you've got to start Saka on that right-hand side. I think he's more disciplined. I think he'll do his job better than Sancho would. So that I think the team will be the same team against Germany. I think he'll play a back 5, a 3-4-3 or whatever you want to call it. And I think England will just sneak it, but won't be easy. Denmark are good at set pieces. England are going to have to be careful tonight. But I trust England to get this job done. But we've been here before. I said I worried for the Ukraine game, sort of Iceland situation that happened in 2016. We've been here before. We've been the favourites and we haven't turned up. So England so far have not done anything spectacular. We've got to a semi-final. We've beaten Germany. We've beaten a couple of average sides as well. But tonight is the night to really stamp your marker down, get to the final, play an Italy side, which have showed big weaknesses in the last couple of games, and we've got a great chance. No doubt England have their weaknesses as well, but I've got faith in England, more faith than I had sort of a week ago. I think they've shown a real resolute side to them. So come on, England.
Absolutely. Neil, you said before the tournament you had your smart money on Italy to get to the final. It's been proven right. Who's your smart money on tonight, mate? England or Denmark?
England. I understand where Charlie's coming from and his point of view, but I sort of tend to disagree. I think the marker we put down is our defence is superb. Clearly, an outstanding defensive setup that we've got, whichever system we play, whether we play the three, whether we play a flat back four. Strikers seem to be all firing. I do agree. I think he'll bring Sacco back in, Sancho, because Sacco will do more going on the defensive side of the game. But I'm very confident in this England team. I think we played really well. I think against Ukraine we really showed explosives, probably too strong a word, but we put that game to bed really quickly, sort of in the second half. There was, 15, 20 minutes and we were out of sight. And I actually expect us to win in 90 minutes tonight. There might be a bit of drama, but I do expect us to win in 90 minutes. I feel it might be a bit like a Premier League game in some respects. And I think that will definitely suit, obviously, it will suit the England side more than the Danish side. And I just wonder how much emotional energy the Danish side have got left. They've been through a hell of a lot in this tournament. And I think the England crowd playing at Wembley, they've done a lot more travelling than when they came back from, was it Baku? They've come back from to travel for this, so they've done a hell of a lot of travelling. I just fancy us big time. I think this is first time in my lifetime. I think we've actually got a chance to win something.
Absolutely, it's a mega chance for England for me. It's all about taking that opportunity. Stu, surely Denmark can't upset the apple cart tonight and spoil our party, our final for the first time in many of our lifetimes.
Well, look, I'm really excited for tonight's game. The wife is taking the girls to their parents, so I can have a couple of the boys around. Got the beers chilling. So So from a fan's point of view, I'm really looking forward to it. From a player's perspective, they should be equally as excited. They should be waking up this morning, bit between the teeth, ready to go. The dressing room environment should require very little information from Southgate, very little pumping up from Southgate and the coaches. The players should, the adrenaline should be running now. What we've got to be careful of is that some of the younger players, where they've not necessarily, played this type of game before. I'm talking about Declan Rice, I'm talking about Calvin Phillips. Neil's absolutely right in terms of it could well be a Premier League game, but this is a different level of Premier League game, I'm guessing. And so we've got to make sure whoever's on that pitch, their first touch is precise, their first pass is precise, their accuracy is spot on, and their application is spot on right from the kickoff. In terms of can anyone spoil our party? Unfortunately, with football, there's always that chance. And when you're coming up against a team like Denmark, and they have had, they suffered that horrific night with Eriksen, and everybody's relieved to see that he's fine. They also look quite relaxed, but they tend to be the Danes, and they tend to be quite laid back. But the problem with Denmark is they're relatively dangerous all over the pitch. And there are certain players that kind of alien to most of us, Kasper Dolberg being one of them. I think he scored 3 already. I think across their forward line, they've got about 6 goals between them, which is, quite worrying. And both their defenders, I think, have scored. Christensen and I can't remember the other guy's name now. But even Martin Braithwaite scored, so it tells you something. But the problem with Denmark is they're very workmanlike. You've got Højbjerg in there, who's extremely industrious, and he will put pressure on Phillips, and he will put pressure on Rice. I'm worried about Phillips' temperament tonight. He's got a tendency to lose his head slightly. He can't do that. But I also agree with the boys, by the way. I think Saka will come back in. I think Sancho will revert to the bench. I think it will be a 3-4-3 or again, however he decides to set it up. Sterling, is a definite. Kane's a definite. I suppose the only question is, would you go with, could you find room for Grealish? But I'm in agreement with Charlie. I think he'll play the side that started against Germany. There is another side to it. I think the Ukrainians were dead on their feet for most of the game on Sunday or Saturday. Saturday it was, wasn't it? Sorry. And I don't think Denmark will be like that. But the other thing about Denmark to remember is also, if it's not going right for them, the players on the pitch will change it. We've seen that happen before. We've seen they're not afraid to change their formation to nullify the opposition. I think it'll be a very tight game. I expect us to win. I really do expect us to win. I expect us to win, but a very close game. But I'll keep my prediction till later.
Absolutely, Charlie. I'm sure if I've got this right, but England have only won just one of the last 6 against Denmark. Is that concerning? Because obviously the last 2 times they played at Wembley, Denmark have drawn and won against England. So they seem to have a little bit of the upper hand in the last couple of previous meetings. Are we just simply maybe not respecting them too much, do you think? People are expecting England to go all the way, but surely Denmark will be looking at this game just as much as England, saying, listen, we can get to the final for ourselves. Do you expect this to be a very, very tight game? Or do you think this is like England, like Neil said, could win it within 90 minutes?
Well, I wouldn't read too much into records. I've always said this before, because obviously the last game England played Denmark, if I'm not wrong, Harry Maguire got sent off.
That's correct, mate, yeah.
In the first half, yeah. So, and also you look at, you could write off England against Germany, but look what they did. So I don't think you can talk too much about records. We talked on this show before that if you don't turn up on the day, teams generally don't win. If you're playing a good side, they'll punish you. And you could talk about, Italy and Spain last night. Italy were lucky not to get knocked out last night because they didn't turn up. In my opinion, they didn't turn up as well as Spain did. And at the end of the day, the old saying, if you don't take your chances, you don't win. And that's what happened to Spain. I think this will be a tight game. Neil could be right. It could be decided in 90 minutes. I think there'll be one goal between the teams, if anything. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were any goals came in the second half. I think if you look at England's games, even against Ukraine, we were 1-0 up at half time. Germany was 0-0. I think Croatia was 0-0 as well, wasn't it, at half time? The goal was in the second half. So, England tend to score more goals in the second half, and I think it might just take that little bit of quality in the 60th, 70th, even bringing a Grealish or a Sancho on to unlock this Denmark defence. But what we've got to be careful of is this Denmark attack as well. England's defence has been fantastic, as Neil said. I totally agree. England's defence has been brilliant. No doubt we've got lucky on occasions, as every team has. In the Scotland game, we were fortunate really to get a point, I thought, out of that game. Against the Czech Republic, they had chances. Against Germany, Thomas Muller should have buried it for 1-1. So we have been lucky on occasions, but you have to ride your luck in football to get far in a tournament. But, if England give those sort of chances to this Denmark side, the way they've been playing, as Stu said, with Dolberg, confident scoring goals, a confident striker scoring goals, they will probably punish England tonight. And England have had a tendency, when they get to big moments, for people to make mistakes. And we saw with Jordan Pickford against Ukraine, although he was not tested much on the night, he did not have the most comfortable evening. He sliced a clearance away. And there are players in this England side that do make rash decisions. Kyle Walker does tend to make these rash decisions at times when the pressure's on. So does Jordan Pickford. So it's not a foregone conclusion tonight. I'm not writing off Denmark. I wouldn't be surprised if Denmark went to the final at all. I think England will just edge it. I think it'll be very tight. But I'm not going to write off this Denmark side one bit. They're a very, very good side. They're strong defensively. They're good going forward, as England are as well, by the way, of course. And yeah, I think whichever team gets to the final, I think they've got a chance. Even if Denmark play Italy, I think they've got a chance of winning it. But I hope it's England against Italy. I really do, of course. It would be fantastic after what we've been through, obviously every country, but particularly, in England, in the UK, in England in particular, we've had obviously a lot of people have had a terrible year or more. And it would be lovely if we could all, come together and celebrate England winning something. So I've got high hopes for tonight. Obviously, let's hope there's no semi-final hoodoo. Let's hope there's no deja vu with mistakes being made in big moments as we did against Croatia in the World Cup. I'm hoping this England team has learned from those mistakes. That's the most important thing in life, learn from your mistakes. And I'm hoping that we have. But yeah, again, England are not going to go all out at this game. It's not going to be I cannot see it being more than winning by 2 goals either way, Denmark or England. I think it's going to be very, very close. We know Gareth Southgate's sort of tactical decisions, whether you like it or not, it's worked so far. We set up not to concede a goal. And if you don't concede a goal in football, you don't lose the game. And it's worked so far for England very effectively. I think tonight, as I said before, we may have to wait until an hour or 70 minutes to see the first goal. Now I've said that, it will probably be 4-4 at half time. But anyway, I hope England do it tonight. They've got enough players. There's no excuse. If England lose tonight, they've failed, in my opinion. There's no excuses tonight. No matter how good, I've said this Denmark side are, which they are, England have got much superior quality in their team throughout. Especially options on the bench to bring on. And Southgate so far has managed, particularly Jack Grealish, very, very well. I think a lot of people have been calling for Grealish to play more, but he's managed him. He said, no, I'm not going to deal with this media pressure from all the fans. I'm going to do it my way. And you have to give him credit for that. He's done it his way. He hasn't been influenced by anybody. He's done it his way, his setup, and that's what a manager should do. And he should do it again tonight because it's worked very well. And Raheem Sterling tonight, I just hope he turns up again and shuts people up, because I've been fed up of people having a go at him. I know he's a Man City player, but people have been on and on and on about him. Without Raheem Sterling, we'd be out this tournament. So I hope he turns up again tonight.
Absolutely. Neil, just on Charlie's point there about Pickford and about Kyle Walker, do you worry about those two in particular making mistakes, because they are quite rash, as he said. We saw against Ukraine that especially Pickford, he did sort of have a couple of dodgy moments there. Do you worry about that at all, or do you just think we've got enough quality as a team as a whole just to see that out?
I'm not. Walker's a slight concern, but I mean, he's quick enough to catch pigeons, isn't he? So he's normally his pace gets him out of trouble, but he's liable to, thrash at a couple of balls. But I'm not worried about Pickford. He seems a completely different goalkeeper than he did sort of six months ago, a year ago. Yeah, okay, so he slashed at a couple of balls that were played back to him, but they either go straight out of play or, he's just not putting them exactly where he wants to get them. So I'm not worried about the goalkeeper. I'm supremely confident in this 11. This is a top 6 Premier League team, this 11 that we've got, and I don't think the Danish side, if they were in the Premier League, I don't think they'd come much more than they'd be mid-table, sort of a bit like the Villa. The manager's proven himself, and he seems to be having to prove himself time and time again. God knows why. I mean, he's making the right decisions. He's not being caught up in all this Jack Grealish sort of Ferrari that, people desperately want Grealish to play and to start. He knows his team. And I'm very confident that, like I said before, I'm really confident that we'll get through. And we score first, we run away with this game, I think, because you bring the Danes on, and the pace that we've got and the quickness to move, the ability we got to move the ball around quickly. I think we get one in front, we could destroy them.
Yeah, just sticking with yourself for a minute, Neil, because I asked these two of the day. If England do get knocked out of the semi-finals, do you think it's progression under Southgate, knowing that he got to a World Cup semi-final a few years previously, or do you think that is not progression and he needs to go? Because it's sort of split 50-50 on some like phone-ins like 606, for example, on 5 Live that I listened to. So do you think it's progress if he does make it to the semi-final and we don't get any further tonight?
I actually think it is, because it's back-to-back semi-finals at the two major tournaments, and surely going into Qatar, which is only just over a year away, because of the moving back of Euro 2020. We were going to Qatar as clearly one of the favourites to win there. So I would say there is an element of progression in that. We got to the final 4 of a World Cup. We got to the final 4 of the Euros. So yeah, I wouldn't be one of these ones calling for his head. I think that'd be Who would you pick? And please don't say Mourinho or anything like that. But who would you pick? Oh, I'd stick.
Yeah, I totally agree. Who would you pick out there? I think Southgate. I think he actually suits international football management. I think he actually suits this England team. I think he suits it better than he does if he came back to club management. But Neil, as well, just sticking with yourself just for a minute before I go to Stu right quickly. Because we had this discussion a few shows ago as well about the FA, no matter how well he does, offering him a new deal. Do you think that was something that the FA maybe jumped the gun on, or do you think that's perfect to get him tied down to a longer-term deal?
No, I think the FA, I think the FA trying to be a bit consistent there. We've chopped and changed managers over the years. We've gone with, foreign managers, which has proved pretty much a disaster. We went with Keegan, disaster. We've had a succession of, Hodgson, another same word again, disaster. Now we've got some consistency in a manager who looks like he's suited to international football and looks like he knows what he's doing. And he's also, because he's been the under-23s, he knows a lot of these players that are coming through. He knows their ability, he knows their mindset. And I think that's a big plus as well.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I just thought I'd just quickly get you, while it's fresh in my mind, get your opinion on that, because I've heard Stu and Charlie's opinion on that before on previous shows. Stu, where's this game going to be won, mate? Do you reckon in midfield, our defence that's been solid hasn't been breached yet, or do you think it lays up with Harry Kane? Where's this going to be won tonight? Because the Danes, they're going to be up for this, and they might not have the squad depth that England have got, because that bench is amazing. If you look at England, what starting lineup it picks, that bench is unreal. Is it even going to be one off the bench, do you think? Where's this going to be one, mate, is the question I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, really. I tend to think, most players will say, or most people say, games are won and lost in the midfield. And to an extent, that's pretty true, because it's all about gaining ground, isn't it? Getting your foothold. Any battle you go against, once you get your foothold, your stronghold, that gives you your foundations to go ahead and kick on. And most people would say, right now, our defence has been our foundation. And yeah, it's hard to argue against that. But you have to consider that, we haven't really faced a striker of any world quality ability. And I'm not saying that the Danes possess that, but the Danes will give us more of a torrid time than most strikers that we faced in the tournament so far. I have a feeling our game will be won off the bench, and I think it will be the likes of Grealish or the likes of Sancho that will change it. The Danes have got 2 good fullbacks. They go forward quite well. They're not bad defensively. So I think our fullbacks, our wing-backs, whatever you want to call them, I think they'll kind of nullify each other. My biggest worry is we will tonight, we'll find out what big game players England have in the side. We know Harry Kane's a big game player and he's started to turn up, but is Saka a big game player? We won't know until 90 minutes. Is Declan Rice a big game player? We won't know till 90 minutes. Same with Calvin Phillips. We know Luke Shaw is. We know Maguire is. We know John Stones is. And I would imagine they'll go with Walker, although Walker has got a bit of a rick. And I think Charlie made a point a couple of days ago in a show that we were on that don't allow Walker to go past the halfway line because they're not too sure about his defensive qualities. We don't want him left wanting. So it's one of those where, and I think Neil's right to an extent, if we can get the first goal, we might find it quite comfortable. But there's also a chance if you get the first goal, you kind of light the fire under the bear. And then who knows where that will take. I don't think Denmark will ever chase the game tonight. I don't expect us to chase the game tonight. I don't think it'll be a chess match. I don't think it'll be a huge pacey game. I think both teams will spend the first 20, 25 minutes looking at each other and then seeing if they can spot the weaknesses that gives us or gives them the advantage of going forward and scoring. But I think that if we get Grealish on at some point and it's 0-0, I think you'll find that Grealish will be the key that unlocks the Danish door. It is a real tough one to call this. It really is, because you don't get to the semi-final without winning games of football. And we're the same. We've won games of football. Yes, we haven't conceded. Yes, the Danes have conceded 5. But it doesn't really matter at this stage whether you conceded 5, 10, 20. It's an irrelevance. You've still got to the semi-final of a major European tournament. And so both teams deserve a lot of credit. I am excited, and I do fully expect us to win. But I just can't see us steamrolling Denmark.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Charlie, I'll come to this. Fans are always known as to be the 12th man. With 60,000 going to be there tonight. I think there's only about 4,000 or 5,000 Danes, I think, in attendance out of all that. So you're looking at about 55,000 England fans tonight, give or take, whatever UEFA's allocations to whatever for all their suits and ties. But will that home advantage pay England sort of a bit more leeway in this game? With their own fans behind them, will it intimidate Denmark a little bit, or do you think the Danes are just focusing on their own game? Listen, they're going to do it for Eriksen, and because obviously that's the forefront of their mind. About 5,000 of their own fans roughly take, and it's all about Christian Eriksen. But will England's fans inspire them to victory? With that 12 being that sort of 12th man.
Well, of course, fans make a difference. I mean, that proved when we had, obviously, the virus situation and the lockdown, we started to see more away wins in the Premier League than we did home wins. And that just showed the absence of fans makes a huge difference. And obviously, hopefully, when we get back to normal, of course, Boris Johnson has said from the new season, we're going to have full capacity in stadiums. So I'll be interested to see whether that goes ahead. But if we do get that, we're going to return to sort of footballers playing in normal atmospheres again. And we all know that teams have won at Old Trafford when they've been outnumbered with their supporters. There's been 70,000 Man United fans there and a few thousand opposition supporters there, but the away team can come away with the result. So, of course, the home crowd will make a difference for England. But Denmark, these players are used to it. They're experienced players. They've got very much experienced players in their team. The goalkeeper in particular, Kasper Schmeichel, I don't think he's had his best Euros, but I still think he is a man that I would not want to come up against, especially if it went to penalties. I would not fancy England's chances with Kasper Schmeichel in goal. I really wouldn't. But in terms of the supporters, of course, it's going to help England. Of course, that's going to be a factor that Denmark are going to have to get used to. But the good thing maybe for tonight for England with these fans behind them is we're not going to be able to dwell on the ball too much. These fans are going to urge these players on to move the ball quickly. I think one of the big criticisms I've had, particularly of Declan Rice so far, I mean, I've got nothing wrong with ball retention and keeping the ball, but there's been a lot of times where Declan Rice has had the chance to pass it a quick incisive pass between the lines forwards, and he's chosen just to turn to the side and pass it backwards or sideways. And I think with the England supporters in there tonight, with the huge support, they'll be demanding that this ball gets moved quickly on the park, and Denmark are going to have to. I think as Stu said, that Denmark aren't going to go for this game, and I agree. I don't think Denmark are going to absolutely go for this game. I think the first half an hour, the first 15 or 20 minutes of every game England have played at this tournament, they've started quickly, and I think they'll do the same again tonight. I think England will start well, and Denmark, of course, they're going to have to deal with this crowd. But these are professional footballers; they're used to, every footballer that's in this Denmark team tonight would have played in a full capacity stadium, being the away side before, where you haven't got that many away supporters behind your back. You've got everybody booing you when you get on the ball. This is what football's all about. And if you can't deal with that pressure, as Stu's mentioned it before, if you can't deal with this pressure of being a professional footballer, if you haven't got the guts and the courage to focus on your own game, focus on your own ability rather than being influenced by fans, you shouldn't be there anyhow. So Denmark are experienced enough. The crowd will help England. Of course it will. It should help England in terms of the movement of the ball as well. I think at times has been a bit too slow. And especially when you're going to come up against a more stubborn defence tonight, we're going to have to move the ball quicker. Declan Rice in particular, as well as Phillips, they're going to have to move the ball better into, incisive passes, quicker, sharp passes rather than sideways. So we can so players can turn with the ball rather than wait for it to come to their feet. I think that's been a problem that Man United have suffered with Fred and McTominay in midfield for a lot of the season as well. And I think it shows when you play against a low block that you have to move the ball quickly. That's why Manchester City, have so much success when they play against low blocks. Not just the system that they play and the quality players they have, but the speed at which they move the ball around. So the players have to shift around the pitch, the opposition has to, and also mentally has to keep thinking about where other players are because the ball is being moved so quickly. So England have got to do that tonight to break this team down. As Stu said as well, Højbjerg in midfield, he's no fool. You've got Delaney as well. I think he plays for Dortmund, doesn't he? Or did he play for Dortmund? I think Delaney does. He plays for a top club as well. So, this midfield is going to be tough. I worry for England more if we got to the final with our midfield. I worry hugely against Italy with Rice and Phillips. Not so much tonight, but still it's a worry. On the ball, they're not the greatest. Calvin Phillips is much better than Rice, I think, on the ball. I think Declan Rice is very good at giving you a shield in front of your back 4 or 5. But I think if you tell Declan Rice, right, you need to get down, be progressive and play, I don't think you can do that. So I think that's going to be that is a worry still for me for England, that midfield. I think that's the biggest worry. I think the attack's fine. I think the runs that Sterling makes will cause Denmark problems. I think Harry Kane's coming into form. I think whoever plays on that right, whether it's Saka, whether it's Sancho, I don't worry about that. I don't worry about Shaw. I don't worry about Trippier as the wing backs. And I don't really worry too much about the back 3. I think it's the midfield that really worries me. I know they've played well so far. But if we were to get to the final against Verratti, Barella and Jorginho, I just don't see how we deal with that press. I don't see how we deal with the Rice and Phillips. I would personally bring in a Henderson or a Bellingham for that final if we get there. And even maybe tonight, I just think Jordan Henderson is so much better on the ball, so much more composed. I think Declan Rice sort of gets a little bit worried when he gets the ball. He doesn't want the ball all the time. I think that's, we talked about before we came on air, Sergio Busquets and also Jorginho, the roles they play for their respective nations, and also Pedri last night for Spain, always wanting the ball for such a young, 18 years of age. He always wants the ball. He's not scared. And in these big games, even if we're playing against a Denmark side, as Neil said, that are not the most incredibly talented and ability-wise, you don't look at Denmark and you don't look at them and say, wow, they've got this many world-class players. They've got sort of 11 players all pulling in the same direction, 11 decent, good, solid footballers in a solid system. But if you don't, we need to see tonight what England are made of. Demand the ball. You need to demand the ball. And that's what I worry with Rice and Phillips. Obviously, Maguire's ball playing ability can help us in that sense to bring the ball out from the back. Harry Maguire almost, I think he's probably played more progressive passes than Rice, or Rice has probably played alternate from centre-back. I'm not fully sure on that, but I'll put my money on it because Maguire's just fantastic at that attribute. So I do worry for tonight with England's midfield. That is one of my main worries. Just they need to demand the ball. They need to be brave on the ball. And I'm just not sure whether Rice and Phillips have got that. So we may have to make a change. As Stu said, it may come from the bench, whether it's Grealish or whether we slip Jordan Henderson or Bellingham in there just to get on the ball that little bit more. Because even against Ukraine at times, especially when we scored our first goal, Ukraine had a little spell and they were in control of the ball for a good 10 or 15 minutes. And if that happens against Italy, I really worry. I really worry for that game. So, yeah, the midfield is my main worry, Benny. That is my main worry.
Yeah, and on that main worry, Neil, where do you think England's key player lies tonight? Who's going to be England's key player? Is it going to be somebody in that midfield? Is it going to be the captain, Harry Kane? Is it going to be Harry Maguire himself at the back there? Who do you see that's going to take this England team on a scruff of the neck tonight?
Pains me to sort of say this, given who he plays for, but I think it could be Sterling because he's had a fantastic tournament. He's been brilliant. I mean, Sterling's been amazing, I think, and I think he's the player. He's looked like he's really enjoyed playing for England, and I think he's the player. If we can get the ball to him, I think he could make all the difference tonight. I see where Charlie's coming from about Rice, but I'm a big fan of Phillips. I mean, I said about a year ago, I mean, it had never happened, but I'd love United to try and sign Phillips above any of the midfielders we seem to be linked with. I think he's an absolutely terrific player, Phillips. Yeah, he's got a couple of fouls in him, but I don't mind that. He's got that aggressive streak that I quite like in a midfield player. But I think tonight the key player is Sterling. Get the ball to Sterling, and he's been outstanding, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Do you also share Charlie's worries about the central midfield pairing of Phillips and Declan Rice? Because, do you fear a press that Denmark might come and press those two and put them under pressure, see if they can handle that pressure in a big semi-final game? Or do you think, like, as you said, you've been impressed with Phillips, sorry, yeah. Do you think they've got enough there to handle the Danes?
I think they have. I think they've got enough. I think as the tournament's got on, obviously it's a pairing that I'm not sure if they ever played together at any level. As a pairing, I think they've got a better, they'll have more of an understanding. Charlie was right. There was a period in the Ukraine game where Ukraine were on top. But that, excuse me, but that always happens in any football at any sort of level, that the opposition at some point will get a period of time where on the top. But I'm really confident in it. Like I said, in the whole team, I'm confident. I think our only weak link is Walker, and that's at a real stretch because his experience, he's got pace. I don't see the Danish side midfield getting on top of our midfield. I do take the point that Charlie says, it's a different kettle of fish against Italy. He might play a different side against Italy. Henderson possibly looks like you would imagine he would come in just for his experience. But I think we've got enough to cope with the Danes, to be honest. I know Højbjerg's had a great season, but before this, he wasn't exactly pulling up trees, was he?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Stu, we spoke about England's bench. Do we think the Danish have that strength and depth of their bench? Should they need it? I mean, I think it's more about their starting 11 for me. But that sort of starting 11 is possibly their strongest. I don't see they've got too many options off the bench, unlike England, where we've got unreal options. Is there anybody that sort of usually sits on their bench that may come on that sort of maybe would worry you a little bit?
Not their bench. I think their first 11 is their best 11 by sure, or their best unit. I think that's the best way to describe it as best. But they've got some decent players. They've got a couple of decent midfielders. I think Norgard's quite decent, isn't he? And is it Was? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah,
Voss?
Voss.
Yeah, I think he's relatively good. I think bench for bench ours is a far superior bench. But what you've got, the Danes are exceptionally fit, and they play the ball well. That keeps them in the game deep into the 70th, 80th minute, but they've still got a lot of energy. And it's quite an art that goes missing in some kinds in a lot of fans' eyes. They don't necessarily see that. And the Danes are very, very good at that. So they're still, relatively sharp and fresh at the business end of the match. So whereas we sometimes have to bring on 2 or 3 pairs of fresh legs to keep our sharpness. But yeah, I would agree their first 11 is by far the strongest. I would say, and I tend to agree with both the lads really. I would say our midfield for me is a bit of an issue, as I mentioned right at the beginning of the show, and that's really down to lack of experience on a big game platform that the likes of Phillips and Rice haven't played. They've not played Champions League football. They're not played Europa League football. No, that's a huge step. But there's some always some good teams, and you do need that guile and that European experience to get you through games of this nature. I do like Phillips and I do like Rice. Rice is a very good screener, and Phillips is a very industrious, good tackler. I would probably put Bellingham in tonight if it was me. I think he's got a little bit more about him. I think he's a bit more industrious than Phillips, but I do like Phillips. I just think it's going to be one of those games where players that are easily intimidated, as I've said before and as Charlie said, shouldn't be on the pitch. So I fully expect 2 teams to not worry about the crowd, not worry about the environment. But I do believe 1 or 2 players, and it could happen on our side, will let the occasion play them. And that could be a bit of a worry for me. You've got to go about your day. You've got to go about your business, how you go about it for any match day in your life. And you haven't got to worry about it being a semi-final. You've just got to take it as another game of football. And that's the best way forward. Because if you don't, and we've had it at Old Trafford, we expected to beat Villarreal and we didn't. We've been expected to beat certain teams and we haven't. For whatever reason, we haven't turned up. I don't expect England not to turn up, but I don't expect it to be a walk in the park either. You've got some seasoned pros in the Danish side. Anyone who watched Michael yesterday would tell you that the Danish, it's another game for them. If you looked at Chiellini last night, the penalty shootout, bloody Jordi Alba was trying to be, all serious on that. Chiellini's rubbing his head, putting his arm around him, laughing. That's what you do. That's it. Chiellini, been there before, seen it, done it. It's a penalty shootout, mate. Whatever, get on with it. And we have to have that kind of mentality. It's another game of football. You cross that white line. You're with 11 of your mates, and you pull together. And that's what I'm hoping we do. But regards to their bench, yeah, they've got some good players. Braithwaite might come on and score, the Barcelona legend. Who knows? But, yeah, for me, it's going to be players that can handle the situation the best who will come out on top. I just hope it's us.
Just quickly, Stu, you said about you might put Bellingham in. Would you not be tempted to put Jordan Henderson in for his, big game experience, winning the Champions League with Liverpool, being Liverpool captain? Would you not?
I don't rate him.
You don't rate him, no?
I don't rate him. I think when you're playing in a team, if you look at Liverpool over the last couple of years, when you're playing in a team that has the firepower and the quality that Mane, Salah, and Firmino at that time were doing, Robertson at the on the left back, you got Wijnaldum in there. I think Henderson's sold under a lucky star, to be honest. I know he's got a lot of experience. I know he's got a lot of leadership qualities. But I think in this type of game, you're going to need somebody who could play the ball as well and do something. And I'm not so sure Henderson's the right move for us. However, I would agree that potentially I would put him in against Italy, because where Henderson is pretty good is man marking. And man marking won't work tonight, but, Koke last night took Verratti out the game completely. And I thought that was a bit of a masterstroke by Spain, which allowed Pedri to then have the more free-flowing role, and you got your quarterback Busquets. If we would have to do something very similar against Italy, so in which case then yes, you would bring Henderson in for that role, because I think he'd stick to Verratti like glue. And if you take Verratti out, Barella as well, if you put Rice on Barella, then you're really nullifying the crux of Italy's game. I know Jorginho is a wonderful talent, and he's very what he does during a game goes missing, but I think Verratti in particular and Barella are the ones you'd want to get hold of. And so maybe for Italy, but not for tonight.
Absolutely, mate. And speaking of Italy, Spain, Charlie, we haven't touched upon it yet. Yesterday's last night's semi-final. What did you make of the game, mate? Did you expect it to go out of penalties? Because was you on the show yesterday? Everybody's expected an easy win for Italy, but Spain upset the apple cart a little bit by making it go to a penalty shootout. What did you make of the game last night, pal?
Firstly, I just want to say I totally agree with Neil on Calvin Phillips. I would take him any day. I think he's a fantastic player. It's more Rice that I'm a little bit worried about, the Rice and Phillips partnership, not so much Phillips. But yeah, Phillips I'd definitely take him. The game last night was a strange one, I thought. In the first sort of half an hour, every single player was sort of giving the ball away. Both sides were pressing the other midfield three, trying to get the ball back. I thought Spain, again, as they've shown throughout the whole tournament, will create about 4 to 5 very good chances in each game, and they'll only take one. It took actually Alvaro Morata, so I can't get my words out, Morata to come on to score the goal, which is quite ironic because he's been the one that's normally been missing all the chances, although he did screw his penalty up. I thought Italy would win 2-1. I thought they'd win narrowly. But Italy were very lucky, I thought, to actually get to penalties. I thought Spain should have finished them off. I think Pedri was incredible, 18 years of age. I thought he was fantastic. Busquets showed his quality. But again, the Italians showed if you give them 1 or 2 chances, they will take one. And that is a little bit of a worry for the final. We know England give away a couple of chances. Of course, every team's going to give you a couple of chances because no team's perfect. It's just about reducing those chances and the quality of those chances. Can you keep, the quality of the chances low? Can you keep teams outside your box? Can you keep those shots more long shots rather than closer shots? And Italy did give Spain a lot of sort of chances from the edge of the box. I think Oyarzabal had a chance. Ferran Torres had a chance on the edge. Obviously, Morata's goal was from inside the box. But if you give those chances to Harry Kane or to Raheem Sterling, the form they're in, you'd fancy him to at least hit the target. So it was a strange game, I thought. Not what I was expecting. I thought Spain were the better team. They created more chances. The press that they made, as Stu's already said, to get Verratti out of the game. I thought their midfield three was very good. Ugly Bear, I'm sorry, but Fred is not better than Calvin Phillips. I've done all my research on this when I did my thread on Fred. Fred is not a bad player. Fred is an average player who can play in a good team, but Calvin Phillips beats him in literally every single category for a midfield player. So I'm sorry that's not true. But yeah, the game last night, I think Italy deserved to be in the final because of the way they played throughout the whole tournament. But if you're talking about just the 90 minutes last night, Spain should have won that game. And again, penalties again. Some of the penalties, Dani Olmo's penalty, Morata's penalty, I don't understand. I understand about the pressure with a penalty shootout, but I do not understand how some professional footballers, how poor some of the penalties have been in this tournament is quite incredible. And No team has ever won 2 penalty shootouts in one Euros. Obviously, Spain beat Switzerland in the quarters on penalties, but no team's ever done it twice, and that shows it's a 50-50 game. Italy won last night, but yeah, I didn't really enjoy the game as much as I thought. There were some moments that were very good, but I just thought that Italy just weren't quite at it as they have been in other games. And we've all praised, obviously me and Neil actually predicted Italy would do well before the tournament started. But Italy, a lot of people have been saying they haven't played anybody yet, and that's why they're keeping so many clean sheets. And I sort of dismissed that idea. I thought they don't give you any chances anyway. But against Belgium and against Spain last night, Italy showed big weaknesses. And I said before, if you get the ball out wide and direct run at them, if you take them on one-on-one, that is their weakness. If you can isolate Bonucci and Chiellini out wide, that is their weakness. Bonucci and Chiellini, they want everything coming into the box, everything in front of them. If Harry Kane goes up against Chiellini or Bonucci, they'll kill you. They won't give you anything. But if you isolate, if you can beat a fullback, take him on, beat him, and isolate Bonucci or Chiellini one-on-one out wide, you can get joy. And they showed that as well against the fullbacks with Doku against Belgium, although it wasn't a penalty. Italy against Belgium, it wasn't a penalty, but Doku won the penalty for Belgium. Being direct, taking a player one-on-one. And that's how you can hurt this Italy team. So I think if England, I think England have got a much better chance of beating Italy than Denmark have if they get there. But if England do get to play Italy, Raheem Sterling will cause that Italy defence a huge amount of problems. And Italy have showed in the last 2 games they will give you chances. They might not be very, very good chances, but for professional footballers, a chance on the edge of the box, give that to Harry Kane, Sterling, Grealish, whoever you want, Mason Mount, even Jordan Henderson. I know Stu doesn't like him that much. But if you give these good quality players a chance from the edge of the box, they will hit the target. England will hit the target and they will punish Italy. So, yeah, I was surprised last night. I thought Spain were a good side, but I didn't know Spain would. I thought Spain were the better team for quite a lot of that game. But at the end of the day, they're a bit like Brighton in the Premier League. It's all fantastic, great football. But honestly, if you don't take your chances, you don't win the football game. And Spain didn't, and they got punished.
Absolutely. Ugly Bear still not having it, mate. He's saying 6 weeks ago I'd agree, but what's your favourite Copa America? He's an animal. Brazil, for Brazil, at key to why they're in the final.
No, Fred, I've said before, I think Fred can offer more in this Man United team than Scott McTominay can. And people might say, oh, McTominay scored this many goals, this, that, and the other. But I think Fred next to a better number 6 for Man United could work. I'm not saying Fred is a fantastic player, and I'm not saying Fred's an awful player. Fred's been very good for Brazil, and I think Fred gets a bit too much stick. I actually think he can be a good player for Man United. But all I'm saying is Calvin Phillips is on literally every category. And I know I'm not a great fan of stats, and I know a lot of other people aren't. I know Stu isn't a great fan of stats. But at the end of the day, if you've got a midfield player who looks better on the eye and looks better stats-wise, you can't really argue, can you? So Calvin Phillips is better than Fred. I actually think they play different roles. I think Calvin Phillips is a better sort of defensive midfield player, and Fred is a better sort of box-to-box player. I think that's sort of Fred's role, more of a box-to-box player. I know he isn't very good at shooting, but you don't need to. You don't need to be. But yeah, honestly, I like Fred. I've said before, I like Fred. I think he can do a good job for Man United. But Calvin Phillips, I 100% agree with Neil. Calvin Phillips, I actually think, I know Leeds wouldn't sell him, but I think Calvin Phillips would actually be Premier League proven. I think he'd be the best option for Man United. If you were to say to me, you can sign one player, doesn't matter about the price, I would sign Calvin Phillips.
Absolutely. Neil, on last night's action, mate, do you agree with Charlie's assessment there that Spain were probably the better team throughout the 90 minutes and Italy were probably not at the very, very best, not at the swashbuckling best, but they've got through anyway. So people that say they've not played anymore, they played Belgium and they played Spain. So this Italian side have got past them both of those sides, you know. So And if England was to, and I like this quite, and I did it on this point as well for you. If England was to make it through to the final, are you sticking with Italy then, or are you being patriotic going for England? Should England get to the final?
No. My Italy bet's paid out because I backed Italy to get to the final.
All right.
So, my bet's already paid out. I put that on a couple of months ago because I wouldn't. I'm very patriotic. I wouldn't back against England at this point. Yeah, it was a strange match last night, and probably, when they talk about the balance of play, Spain should have won, but they didn't. And you just felt the longer it went on, and then when it went into extra time, I just felt the longer it went on that Italy were just going to do enough to get over the line. Spain just, when it came to the penalties, if I was going to have a bet then, I definitely would have backed the Italians. One of the major facts is I think Donnarumma's just quite an outstanding keeper, isn't he? So, yeah, it was quite a strange game. I think a lot of people were probably watching that game and were still thinking about tonight's game and how do England and Denmark, how do they match up? But I didn't really get into the game last night. I sort of got stuck into a bottle of Merlot instead, which, paid for this morning. But, no, it was a strange game for a semi-final, I thought. I think Spain have flattered to deceive, and I think given the way Spain had, the Spanish public has reacted to this squad, I think the Spanish people will be pretty happy with the fact that they got to the semi-finals. And I think Italy always expect to get to the semi-finals and even further. But, it was a strange game.
Absolutely strange. Wasn't a very classical semi-final, though, Stu. Wasn't one of those ones that really got you on the edge of your seat. There was the odd little flashy moments where you think, oh yeah, finally this game's going to kick into a bit of a proper semi-final, gung-ho, But then again, some semi-finals, as we've seen in club football, and even some finals to that degree, mate, always flatter to deceive, and they are boring events because some, when you've got two teams that are frightened to give away that one moment where it could cost them the game. So, what did you make of it last night? Do you agree with the boys and say it was a very strange game, or do you see it from a different light?
Well, it was exactly what I thought would happen anyway. I spoke about it yesterday. I was kind of shot down a bit about Busquets and the influence he can have on a game of football. And I was talking to Neil about it and compared him to Odjan Molby from the 80s, a Liverpool player, very rarely ventured out the centre circle or 10 yards past the centre circle, but his passing accuracy, his overall influence on a game of football was phenomenal, and Busquets ran the game last night. And I think Enrique got his tactical side of the game pretty spot on in terms of how they nullified the Italians. Obviously, they got the goal. It was a wonderful strike by Chiesa, and that's football. Anything like that can happen. I just think that last night's match was one for the old heads. I thought Chiellini and Bonucci were brilliant. Although they were cut apart, to be fair, by the Spanish goal. I thought overall, the more experienced and the older players on the pitch. There's a lot of younger players in the professional game. There's a lot of younger players who aspire to be footballers. Should take a look at those three players, Bonucci, Chiellini, and Busquets, and try and get a real understanding of what real football's all about, and how you can really affect a game. A lot of people talk about Chiellini and Bonucci. Oh, they're not quick enough. Blah 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 blah. It's all about, and the same with Busquets. He's got no speed. It's intelligence. It's football intelligence. And football intelligence was on display last night by those three players. Even when Bonucci went up for his penalty, Bonucci's missed his last one. He was never missing. And when you look at games as a whole anyway, and you look at semi-finals as a whole, they very rarely ignite because they're too cagey, because there's a bit too much at stake. Same with the group games, they rarely ignite. So tournament football is very strange compared to a Premier League game, because unfortunately tournament football is a sprint. It isn't a marathon where the Premier League is. And so you really you get 2 chances in the group, potentially. I mean, as it happens, it was some teams that only needed 1 chance, but normally you get 2 chances in a group, and then you only get 1 chance as you progress through the tournament. And this is where it comes down to what I said previously about we'll find out what big game players are who've actually got the balls to take a game by the scruff of the neck and lead you through, and who's going to smash you through that brick wall. You see, tonight and on Sunday, if we get through and we play the Italians, there'll be 2 completely different games, but ultimately the outcome will be the same. They'll be very, very, I think, slow burners, very cagey. I could be wrong. We could come out and score twice in the first 10 minutes, and then, I think it'd be pretty much game over. But you're talking, when you get to semi-final, whether you played well or not, throughout, the tournament to this point, you're still an unknown. You still don't know which team's going to turn up. We don't know which England is going to turn up, and we don't know which Denmark's going to turn up. And then you can take that, unfortunately, through to the final. Again, you don't know which Italian team's going to turn up and which England team's going to turn up. So for us tonight, as I said right at the beginning, the players have got to concentrate on themselves. They've got to concentrate on making sure their first touch is precise, clean, making sure they don't give the ball away in the first 5 to 10 minutes. Just relax, and we'll see where it takes us.
Absolutely. Neil, did you want us to make a point, mate? I just see it go up.
Stuart, didn't you predict that Italy would win on penalties yesterday?
No, I said.
Who was it then? Well, it must have been you. Who was on with
No, he didn't say pens either. I said it'd go to extra time, and I thought Bonucci would score.
Yeah,
the winner.
The other chap then did, didn't I?
Yeah.
He predicted Henry.
No, Henry didn't predict pens. No.
I thought he predicted Italy to win on pens.
No. He thought Italy would win in full time.
I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about Italy. Bloody hell, we're going to win. Don't worry about it. I'll be shitting bricks tonight, but I mean we're going to win.
Shitting bricks today.
I think the beauty of today is
better build a bungalow.
Yeah, I think the beauty of today is that we're all excited, and we all really hope, and we know, fingers crossed, England will go through. But we're all football fans. We all understand football, and it's one of those, isn't it? And I tend to agree. But I'll have my top on late with the lads. I've got the beers in, real ales.
I've got to do my usual. I bought it's been on my Twitter. I've got a new TV. I'm still having to watch it on the old one.
Good.
I can't swap the tellies out. I've got to have a glass of milk and no drink.
Yeah.
Every England game, I've had a glass of milk and no drink, and I've watched them on my own.
Well, I'm a bit of a wine buff. I like my wine, as you well know, and I got a 2001 Rioja out the other night, Neil, for Uncut, and I was having a look at what I got. I found a '94 Rioja Reserva, and I think I might have that for the final if we make it.
Well, you'll be drinking that then on Sunday, isn't it? The final.
That's it.
I'm off to the allotment this afternoon to do a load of shit shoveling anyway, so don't worry about that.
No, I've got another meeting a bit later on, but I've got to take Junior for lunch first.
That sounds like a euphemism.
Yes, doesn't it just?
Anyway,
we've all got nicknames from Stu, but fair enough.
Absolutely, Bully.
Anyway, I'll wrap the show up before Ben moans at me that it's gone over an hour again. But I just love listening to all your opinions. I'm going to wrap the show up where I get a score prediction from each of our guests for tonight's game. I'll start with Charlie. Charlie, what we're saying, mate?
Oh God! Every time it comes to me, I say something, and the opposite happens in my score predictions. But I'm going to go I'm going to go England 1, Denmark 0. I'm not sure whether that's in normal time. I'm going to go for it'll be about the 75th minute. England will get the winner, I think, 1-0.
Neil?
I keep saying it. Most games I predict the same score, but I think England will win 2-0. I can't see the Danes scoring, to be honest.
No, I can't see the Danes scoring as well myself. I'll give mine in a minute. Stu, your score prediction, mate?
See, I'm really torn on this one, to be fair. You know, I'm really torn. I think it's going to extra time. I think it'll be 0-0 in 90 minutes. I think it'll go to extra time. And we'll scrape it 1-0. And I think Grealish will be the turning point for us.
Grealish get that goal for you?
Not to get the goal. I think Kane will get the goal, but I think Grealish will be the instigator, the catalyst. I don't know. I just fucking hell. It's just, look, on normal occasions, you would know, but I think there's two very evenly matched teams there. I think it's going to be a really, really tough game. So I'm going to go 0-0 in 90 minutes and Kane to get the winner in extra time, but I don't know when.
Oh. Yeah, that'd be a good price at that on the bookies, you know, Stu.
Yeah, no, I can have a look.
Be a proper good price on that.
That's what I'm thinking anyway.
Ask Benny if you want a betting tip.
Oh, God, don't ask me for any betting tips.
I've heard Benny couldn't tip rubbish.
Makes me fair. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, Stu's talking about thunder there. I think it's going to be 0-0, but I reckon it's going to go all the way to penalties. I really do.
Oh, God.
I think England will win on penalties, though. I know. Neil's going, oh, God. But I just think, and I put a tweet out earlier, I was thinking, which goalkeeper will come out on top? Because Cassius Michael's really good in a penalty shootout. And obviously, I call him T-Rex Arms because that's what he's known on social media. Jordan Pickford, he's also pretty decent at a penalty shootout, as proved in the World Cup. But I don't know. And I said on Twitter earlier that Schmeichel edges it for me, but now I'm thinking about it more and more. I just think England will do it on penalties. I don't know why, but you know what it's like being a United fan, but exactly the same with not being an England fan. They always find the hardest way to do things, never the easiest way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but we haven't conceded a goal yet. Come on. But if it goes to penalties, if it goes to penalties, I'll be going for a long walk down a short pier. That'll be it. Game over for me, lads.
Have you guys noticed with the penalties this tournament in particular, the amount of defenders that take them nowadays?
No one's took a Panenka either.
No, well, if you look at the England team as well, I wouldn't fancy Rice or Phillips to take one. So you're probably looking at
Phillips, maybe
Phillips. But I think Luke Shaw. I think somebody like Shaw or maybe even Shaw or Maguire might take one if we got to that stage. If you think about obviously making subs in extra time,
Maguire will head it in. He'll just dive with it.
Slabber it in, won't he?
Good old Slabber.
Right. Do you leave your best till last, though? Do you leave your best penalty taker till last, or do you go first?
No, go first.
First.
I think
get him in. Get him in
first.
Yeah. Get him in.
Get the confidence up.
Get him in, yeah.
Your last one might never take one.
Exactly, yeah, I agree with that.
You go first.
Kane first.
Definitely Kane first, and then whoever the next strongest one is.
Sure.
Whoever's on the field.
Luke Shaw will score one if you get.
Well, let's not talk about pens, lads. You know,
let's give it positive.
Let's be positive, guys. Come on, Harry Kane. Extra time, 1-0, bang, get in.
Normal time, come on, Stu. Normal time.
England to win 2-1 in normal time. Slabhead for the winner. Ugly Bear saying if it goes to pens, I can't see a win with Pickford.
Who knows?
Then again, Ugly Bear did say just above here. I don't know if I said this before, but he said 2-1 and Rashford to get the winner.
I'd love Rashford to get the winner.
Yeah, so would I.
Oh, it just said on BBC Sport they're expecting Saka to start.
Everyone's expecting Saka. Yeah.
What about back five? Have they said anything about back five or not? No. Nothing yet. It might be a back four then.
Could be.
We shall see, because we know what Gareth's like. You know, we'll find out just over an hour before the game.
I don't fancy a 4-3-3 against.
Back in.
I don't fancy a 4-3-3 against.
You don't fancy a 4-3-3, no.
No, their wing backs are solid. Their wing backs are really
their
quick.
left wing back's got 2 goals and an assist already in this tournament.
Yeah,
I don't like stats that much, but that shows he's a threat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
their right wing back's not bad. I can't remember his name, but he's
Kriegel Larson or something.
That's it.
Like that.
He'll push Shaw back. He will. He'll keep Shaw back tonight.
I know this is dragging on, but here's a question, and just in case you have missed it, pal, I'll give this one to Neil. Neil loves Declan Rice. What do you guys think about Declan Rice? I'll let you answer that one, Neil, because I think it's a partner that you're more impressed with.
I've changed my mind about Declan Rice, and my friend Joe in Ireland's going to have a fit. Because, I've got a feeling he's not a big fan of Rice, but I would. If he does leave West Ham, he's going to cost probably ridiculous money. They're going to be like 80, 90 million quid. It'll be a joke price, but he's the ideal player in some respects. He's the sort of player that we need just to screen the back four. And it annoys the hell out of me that United play with 2 holding midfield players at home every single game. I wish there was a bit more flair in the side, and I think one good holding midfield player, and Rice might be that man, but I still think Phillips could be the man. If you're going to spend the money, I'd buy Phillips if you could get him. But Leeds, who everybody knows my views on Leeds, they ain't selling him to us. So it might be that Rice is the one that United go for, but City going to try and buy him now they've got another year out for Fernandinho or whatever his name is. But Rice has impressed me massively. I've changed my mind on him.
Oh, Stu's back. I was wondering why I thought he was Stu to death then.
No, I thought he was just sorting Junior out.
Yeah, well, I've just had to sort him out and tell him, yeah.
Anyway, I will wrap the show. What, you got a point to make there? Sorry, Stu?
No, with Declan Rice, I was listening. I think Neil's quite right. He has kind of impressed me, but he's way out of pocket. He's just way out of pocket. He's an 80, 90 million pound signing. We can't afford. And we can't afford him. And I just kind of think that. And I've said this before about fans, they get tied up in these names, like everyone's going Varane mad and all that kind of bollocks and, that type of thing. There are other players out there. We're talking about Camavinga, but there are other players out there such as Declan Rice, but you've got to balance the books somewhere along the line. You have to balance the books. And I think Rice would be good for us. I do. I also take on board the Phillips thing. I think that'd be great for us. But with the amount of money we're already spending, you've got to cut your cloth somewhere along the line. And if you can get an equally good player or a player that's as competent and, can grow into the side, you're better off doing that. But I take Neil's point about Rice. But we never get him. Neil's right. It's just we haven't got the money.
Absolutely. Well, I better wrap up the show, and I will wrap it up with this. Right, this is going to sound weird because it ain't football, but it is football. If Atomic Kitten can come out of obscurity and re-release their smash hit Whole Again, calling it Southgate, You're the One. Obviously, everybody knows the song. After the England fans have been singing since 2018 World Cup, the football match be coming home. If they come out of absolute obscurity, absolutely, I thought they were all split up and, but that proves me wrong. So, I just found that out today on Facebook. I just saw it and I said, "Oh, look, Atomic Kitten. Were they flogging this time?" It's about the England song. I know there was at is it Camden Park, whoever it is, or wherever it is in London? That's Croydon Park.
Camden Town.
Yeah, that's a big fan park there. I think they were performing the song there against the when England played Ukraine. So. But that just says it all. Maybe football is coming home after all, eh?
Oh, look, they drag old acts out like that all the time, don't they? Crikey!
It's a great pop song. Come on, we could do a show about top pop songs.
I know, but they still drag Beckham out, don't they? Oh, look, Beckham's at Wembley. Oh, fucking who cares? Who fucking cares? My mates at Wembley tonight.
Poses out there, pal.
I've got a couple of my mates are at Wembley tonight, and all that kind of stuff. Oh, who gives a fuck? But no, Atomic Kitten. Well, there you go. Each to their own.
And on that bombshell, we shall end it there. My thanks to Charlie, my thanks to Neil, and my thanks to Stu. And we'll see you in the next one.